about to proceed. Today, inshallah, we will have the chapter on Ithar, altruism, and then we will start the Kitab al-Janaiz, the book on funerals, and the fiqh session. So Imam al-Harawi rahimahullah said, Bab al-Ithar, the chapter on altruism, قال الله عز وجل ويؤثرون على أنفسهم ولو كان بهم خصاصة. قال الله عز وجل ويؤثرون على أنفسهم ولو كان بهم خصاصة. Allah Almighty said, and they give others preference over themselves, or favor others over themselves, ولو كان بهم خصاصة, even though they are in privation. Even though they are in privation, they are in need, so they give others preference over themselves concerning that which they need, or despite their need for that which they have given up. And then Imam al-Harawi rahimahullah said that إِثَارُ تَخْصِيصٌ وَاخْتِيَارٌ وَالْأَثَرَةُ تَحْسُنُ طَوْعًا وَتَصِحُّ كَرْهًا. And the phrasing here is a little bit ambiguous, so it needs to be deciphered, and it needs some things to be inserted, دلالة الاقتضاء, or the required implication. We have to basically insert some words here in the sentence so that the sentence would make sense. Because he said al-Ithar takhsis wa ikhtiyar. He said al-Ithar takhsis wa ikhtiyar. Ithar is basically when you favor, it's altruism. It's when you favor others over yourself. It is when you give preference to others over yourself. It is to act in the interest of others, even though it may be against your own interest. Even though it is against your own interest. So to do that which is in the best interest of others, even though it is against your own interest. So we will talk about the different types of Ithar, but that's in general what it is. It is to basically work for that which is in the best interest of others, despite it being against your own interest. So he says here al-Ithar, which is altruism, تخصيص واختيار. تخصيص واختيار. تخصيص means what? Specification. But what it means here in this particular context is that it is selective and voluntary. تخصيص واختيار. اختيار is voluntary. So Ithar is selective and voluntary versus Athara, which is selfishness. You could say also Ithar is selflessness, and Athara is selfishness. So he says that Ithar, Takhsis, and Ikhtiyar, altruism is a choice to favor someone in particular over oneself. So it is selective and it is voluntary. When you act in this way, with Ithar, you are acting out of an autonomous decision, like a voluntary, free decision. You're not acting under the pressure of your inclinations. And that is why atheists usually have a problem with Ithar in particular, because when they attempted to explain all human behavior within the context of evolution and, basically that we've learned this over time because it helps with our survival. They have a problem when it comes to Ithar, when it comes to altruism, because you're actually working here. What you're doing here is serving the interest of someone else against your own interest. So it is the other regarding behavior, not the self-regarding behavior. And that does not seem to particularly serve the purpose of your own survival. So they come around it and they try to say that we've learned as a species that when we do this, there will be reciprocity, and if I, basically serve your interest, you'll serve my interest, or you will reciprocate, and as a species, we will do good all together. and then when they encounter like a very sort of hard phenomena to explain, like martyrs basically who sacrifice their life, they intentionally, voluntarily sacrifice their life, and that does not seem to serve any evolutionary purpose, because they are ending their life. What kind of reciprocity would they expect after the end of their lives? So it does not really fit into their paradigm. Ithar is one of the hardest things for them to explain. They certainly attempt to explain it, and and some people can get convinced with their explanations. Some people get convinced with their explanations, but their explanations certainly are deficient and lacking. Ithar is, one of the qualities that prove that there is something to us beyond matter, beyond our physical existence, beyond our bodies. So it is a voluntary and selective action. Ithar is a voluntary and selective action. Here you're acting out of duty and obligation, not out of desire and inclination. It proves your autonomy, it proves your freedom, it proves your, to some extent, free choice, which honors man above all others. That level of free choice, yes, it is still under the authority of the divine, but that free choice is what honors man, acting out of autonomy. When you act out of duty and obligation, you're proving to yourself that you're not enslaved to your desires and inclinations. You're not enslaved to your instincts, because here you are basically acting against your instincts, against your desires, against your inclinations. Your inclination is self-regarding. It is not other-regarding. Your inclination is to work for your own interest, not for the interest of others, for your own welfare, not the welfare of others. When you do the opposite and you work for the welfare of others, even though it is against your own interest and against your own inclinations, you're proving so many things. You're proving that you are an autonomous being with some degree of free choice. And you're proving that you are capable of rising above your instincts and inclinations to act out of duty and obligation. And you're proving that there is something that is transcendent, that you cannot really do this consistently unless you're doing it for something that is transcendent, for God, for Allah, for the divine. Because otherwise there will be no point in ithar whatsoever. It will make no sense whatsoever to be altruistic if there is nothing that transcends the physical universe that is around us, for which we practice ithar. Then Sheikh al-Harawi rahimahullah ta'ala said, وَالْأَثَرَ تَحْسُنُ طَوْعًا وَتَصِحُّ كَرْهًا. Here we will have to add a word. So he says, وَالْأَثَرَ تَحْسُنُ طَوْعًا. Selfishness is praiseworthy if it is done voluntarily. That is what it will mean. So selfishness is praiseworthy if it is done voluntarily. Then we will have to say that what is meant here, selfishness, is praiseworthy when it is tolerated voluntarily. When you tolerate it, not when you do it, not when you act out of selfishness, but when you tolerate the selfishness of others. Because the people of ithar are people who also tolerate athara. The people who are selfless are the same people who will tolerate the selfishness of others. The people who are selfless, it is the same thing. It comes from the same root. The root is those people have no shuh whatsoever. They have no avarice. They have no greed. They are not possessive. They are not possessive. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the same ayah in Surah al-Haj, وَيَؤْثِرُونَ عَلَى أَنفُسِهِمْ وَلَوْ كَانَ بِهِمْ خَصَاصَةٌ, and they favor others over themselves, even though they are in privation. What did Allah say afterwards? وَمَن يُوقَ شُحَّ نَفْسِهِ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. And whoever is protected from the avarice of themselves, those are the prosperous ones. Whoever is protected from the avarice, the shuh is the excessive greed, possessiveness. If those people have no shuh, that excessive greed, avarice, possessiveness, they will do ithar, they will be altruistic, and at the same time, they will tolerate people's selfishness. They will be selfless themselves, and they will also tolerate people's selfishness because they are not extra possessive or greedy. They don't have that shuh or that avarice. Okay, so a Sheikh here says, وَالْأَثَرَ تَحْسُنُ تَطَوُّعًا. It means that selfishness is tolerated willingly, and that is praiseworthy. وَتَصِحُّ كَرْهًا. But it may also be tolerated unwillingly. It may also be tolerated unwillingly. Here, it would not be particularly praiseworthy to be tolerated unwillingly because you are unwilling. There is no autonomous behavior here to be praiseworthy, to be reward-worthy. So if someone is acting selfish and you tolerate this because you have no recourse, you have no choice but to tolerate it, that is not necessarily praiseworthy. It is not blameworthy either. It is not blameworthy either because there is no free choice here. There is no autonomous conduct or behavior here to be either praiseworthy or blameworthy. You have no options. So like you're tolerating this selfish behavior from others because you have no options. No judgment about this. It's not praiseworthy. It is not blameworthy. But when you tolerate the selfishness of others, out of autonomous free choice, decision on your part, that's fine. Let them have it. They want it, let them have it. Let's say my spouse, my wife or husband, they want to make that decision, let them make it. They want to have this thing, let them have it. My neighbor, my business partner, anyone, they want it, let them have it. Now, if this is an autonomous conduct, then it is certainly praiseworthy, and that is what the Sheikh is saying here. And he's combining between ithar and the toleration of athara, combining between altruism, selflessness, and the toleration of selfishness, because it is the same people the same selfless people are the people who will be most able to tolerate selfishness. Why is this? Because those people are God conscious. They are not self-conscious. They are God conscious. And those people are not possessive. They don't have this avarice or this greed or shuh that makes people not act with selflessness and that makes people selfish. Okay, then al-Shaykh rahimahullah said, وَهُوَ عَلَى ثَلَاثِ دَرَجَاتٍ. Al-Ansar in particular, if you want to look for the epitome of this behavior, Al-Ansar were described to have no shuh. May Allah be pleased with them. So Al-Ansar, who is described by this verse in Surah Al-Hashr? وَيُؤْثِرُونَ عَلَى أَنفُسِهِمْ وَلَوْ كَانَ بِهِمْ خَصَاصَةٌ. Al-Ansar, they favor others over themselves even though they are in privation. They have shown this when al-Muhajirin came to them and they have given up their wealth to share with the Muhajirin. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described them as people who are altruistic, people who favor others over themselves, even though they are in privation. And they were the best people to tolerate selfishness as well. Listen to what the Prophet ﷺ said to them. إِنَّكُمْ سَتَلْقَوْنَ أَثَرَةً بَعْدِي فَاصْبِرُوا حَتَّى تَلْقَوْنِي عَلَى الْحَوْضِ. You will The Prophet ﷺ said, and this hadith is in Bukhari, and the Prophet ﷺ said, you will encounter athara, you will encounter selfishness. That is selfishness directed against you. So you will encounter selfishness after me, so be patient until you meet me at the pond. How is the pond? Because it is basically, it makes it more, if you say the lake, it certainly will be enough for all of Ummah Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but the word pond itself is nicer. It makes it feel like more cozy, I guess. So فَاصْبِرُوا حَتَّى تَلْقَوْنِي عَلَى الْحَوْضِ, so be patient until you meet me at the pond. And the Ansar did basically exhibit that patience, and they did not fight, they did not compete for the pleasures of this world. And they continue to be people of Ithar and people who tolerated Athara. Now, keep in mind that this is, as an individual behavior, it is praiseworthy, but it does not mean that as a community we will allow greedy people to abuse, the unprivileged people or the less fortunate people. We will not allow this as a community, as a society. There is a difference between individual practice and collective practice. There is a society that would allow the greedy to basically abuse, exploit others is a society that is basically doomed to failure and destruction. We will not allow this as a society, but individually, on an individual level, tolerating this athara when it does not basically embolden the people who have shuh and who have bukhl, and when it does not embolden them, then it is praiseworthy. But also, you do not allow it if it will embolden the people, the shahih and bakhil people, and the people of athara, the selfish people. But there is certainly a lot of room for showing this, for tolerating athara, particularly between spouses, between business partners, between neighbors, and so on. There is a lot of room for tolerating this, and there is a lot of room when this is praiseworthy. Tolerating some degree of selfishness from your companion, your spouse, your neighbor, this or that, is praiseworthy. Then the Sheikh talked about the three levels, and he said, الدرجة الأولى أن تؤثر الخلق على نفسك فيما لا يحرم عليك دينا ولا يقطع عليك طريقا ولا يفسد عليك وقتا. The first level is to favor the creation over yourself as long as this does not lead to sin, and it does not interrupt your journey, nor does it waste your time. To favor the creation over yourself. And here, الدرجة الأولى أن تؤثر الخلق على نفسك, to favor al-khalq. Khalq is creation. And it is beautiful that the Sheikh used al-khalq versus, أن تؤثر أخاك على نفسك. Because the creation includes all creation. It includes even, you could go as far as saying it includes the environment. Because that's part of Allah's creation. And we love Allah's creation because we love their creator. We love the creations, we love the creatures because we love their creator, Azza wa Jal. So, أن تؤثر الخلق على نفسك, this includes everyone. Ithar is not limited to your kin. That may be basically explained on the basis of evolution, for instance. To say that it is not limited to your kin, and it is not limited to your community, and it is not limited to your co-religionists, to Muslims, and it is not limited to humanity, and it is not limited to animals. It goes beyond all of this to all of Allah's creations, you favor the creations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala over yourself. You have this love for the creation because you love their maker, their creator, Azza wa Jal. The Prophet ﷺ said, whoever wants to be moved from the hellfire and enter paradise, فلتأته منيته وهو يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر من أحب أن يزحزح عن النار ويدخل الجنة فلتأته منيته وهو يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر وليأتي إلى الناس الذي يحب أن يؤتى إليه. Let him not die except while believing in Allah and the Yawm al-Akhir, the hereafter, and let him also treat the people as he likes to be treated, or do unto people that which he wants to be done unto him. And that is an-nas. It's basically all people. It is not just akhu, even though when akhu is mentioned, it's not necessarily limited to Muslims. It means the children of Adam in general, unless it is specified or unless there is a reason to think that this applies to akhu in Islam, to his brother in Islam, but it is basically about the children of Adam, particularly when it talks about, etiquettes, ethics of business and transactions. The mention of akh here, as Al-Nawawi points out in Majmu' and others, the mention of akh here is not limited to his Muslim brother. Okay, so أن تؤثر الخلق, to favor the creation, and that's all the creation. Not limited to your family, not limited to your Muslim brothers, not limited to humanity, all of the creations. As the Prophet ﷺ said, في كل كبد رطبة صدقة. There is a reward for any kindness that you extend to any living animal. Kabid and ratba means moist liver, means an animal that has a liver, that has, So it means that there is kindness, there is reward in any act of kindness extended to any living animal. فيما لا يحرم عليك دينه. But here is what is important to emphasize. This is important to stress here, that this ithar, if it is truly for Allah, you will not be favoring the people in a way that is sinful. You will not be favoring the people for the pleasure of the people. You're not favoring the people for the pleasure of the people, because if you favor the people for the pleasure of the people, then that will lead you to sinfulness. That will lead you to transgression, to disobedience, because the people may want you to do things that are sinful. What are you going to do then? If you are favoring the people for the pleasure of the people, that keep in mind, if you favor the people for the pleasure of the people, this will be inconsistent. Because when you favor people for the pleasure of the people, ultimately and undoubtedly, you would want some level of reciprocity here. You would want some payback. You will want some, recognition from the people. But if you favor the people for the pleasure of Allah, you will be consistent. That altruism will not be contingent on reciprocity. That altruism will be absolute and will be consistent. You will do it until the end of your life. The Prophet ﷺ in Hadith Uqba ibn Amir, basically the Hadith Uqba ibn Amir embodies this altruism for the sake of Allah that will be consistent, never interrupted, because it is not contingent on reciprocity. He said to Uqba ibn Amir, Ya Uqba ibn Amir, this is reported by Imam Ahmad authentically, Ya Uqba ibn Amir, sil man qata'ak wa a'ti man haramak wa'afu amman asa'a ilayk. Ya Uqba ibn Amir wa Uqba ibn Amir, join those who cut you off. Basically, be kind to your relatives who are unkind to you, who cut you off. Join the kinship or the ties of kinship or the ties of the womb. وَأَعْطِ مَنْ حَرَمَكَ, and give to those who withhold from you. Give to those who are stingy, who are miserly with you. وَأَعْفُ عَمَّنْ أَسَاءَ إِلَيْكَ, and forgive those who transgress you or who wronged you. So that is altruism for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Can anyone do this consistently for their entire life unless they are basically seeking the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? It is not human to do it with complete lack of reciprocity, unless you're seeking something that transcends this universe, and transcends your worldly existence. You're seeking Jannah, you're seeking the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is how you could continue to be consistently altruistic, despite the lack of reciprocity, despite the lack of recognition. Keep in mind, altruism could be in ways, egoist psychologists would always say that altruism is self-regarding, because altruism could often be self-regarding. It could be, you could be altruistic for that feeling of, for that feeling of nobility, of magnanimity, of virtue, of righteousness. You want to feel good about yourself, and you want to have this sort of self-recognition. But if you're not getting any recognition from anyone around you, it will fade out. That altruism will fade out. Some people continue to be altruistic as long as they're getting some recognition, but the people who will be able to carry on despite the lack of any recognition, and something else also, despite the need, when Allah says وَلَوْ كَانَ بِهِمْ خَصَاصَةٌ, even though they are in privation, because people who are altruistic for the sake of their self-recognition, forget about recognition by others, but for the sake of their self-regard and self-recognition, you want to look in the mirror and say to yourself, I am good, I am generous, I am not miserly. People who do this for the sake of self-recognition, according to the Maslow hierarchy of needs that we've discussed before, if we discussed it before, I think we did, but according to that Maslow hierarchy of needs, which Maslow did not include self-actualization and then self-transcendence, but he included it before his death. He talked about self-transcendence. But self-actualization would be here, self-esteem would be here, sense of belonging would be here, security and safety would be here, and down here is basically your essentials, your physical needs, water, air, food, your physical needs. So you're not looking for self-esteem, self-regard, self-recognition until you have secured your basic needs, and then secured safety and security, and then you have this sense of belonging and love and so on. And then you look for self-esteem before self-actualization, which is basically to reaching your potential. And finally, self-transcendence, when you try to reach the infinite. People who are altruistic for the sake of people, for the sake of self-recognition even, forget about recognition by others, they want to secure this first and then secure this. So they want to have their needs first and then give the extra for that feeling of, self-recognition and for self-esteem. But what about the people who go all the way to the top, despite being in privation, despite their need for the bottom, their basic needs? What about the people that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described in the Quran, وَيُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ مِسْكِينًا وَيَتِيمًا وَأَسِيرًا in Surah al-Insan, and they give food despite their need. Hubbi here means despite their need. It means love, because they love it, they want it. It means here despite their need. So they are giving food despite their need for it to the miskeen, the orphan, and the asir. Asir is captive. is Allah talking about Muslim captives here? No, He's talking about non-Muslim captives. Ithar here applies to everyone, even the asir, the captive that was fighting against you, that was basically desiring to kill you or wanting to kill you in war. Then you give them your food, and that's what the Sahaba did with their captives. They gave them their food despite their need for this food. So, they shared their food with the captives. If you do this, despite the fact that you did not really secure your basic needs yet, but you're being altruistic, that means there is something transcendent, higher than your needs. You're not here really acting here out of inclination. You're acting here out of duty and obligation. You're acting out of the pursuit of the pleasure of the transcendent, the divine, God, Allah Azza wa Jal. So, when you act for the pleasure of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, certainly this ithar will not be the type of ithar that will be sinful. You will not favor people over yourself in a way that is sinful, or you will not do favors for people that are sinful. And also, وَلَا يَقْطَعْ عَلَيْكَ طَرِيقًا, and it will not interrupt your journey. It will not interrupt your journey. Like, you do not allow the people to distract you from your journey or interrupt your journey back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَلَا يُفْسِدُ عَلَيْكَ وَقْتًا, nor does it waste your time. Nor does it waste your time. So some people may like to be entertained for hours. Like some people may like to sit down and socialize and, chat for hours. And so sometimes the brothers after Salat al-Isha, they could sit down for, particularly back home, you could sit down until it's close to the time for Fajr. And they're chatting. Now you're entertaining someone. You could say, that's ithar. I would have wished to go home and study or pray or do something more beneficial, but I'm doing ithar. No, this is not the right type of ithar. This is wasting his time and your time. You're better off telling him, let's just do something like worthwhile, beneficial, and just go home. Anyway, but then to do this, to favor the creation over yourself, concerning that, without disobeying Allah, without slowing yourself down on your journey, without wasting your time, you will not be able to do this except with three qualities. The Sheikh said, وَلَا يُسْتَطَاعُ إِلَّا بِثَلَاثَةِ أَشْيَاء بِتَعْظِيمِ الْحُقُوقِ وَمَقْتِ الشُّحِّ وَالرَّغْبَةِ فِي مَكَارِمِ الْأَخْلَاقِ. بِتَعْظِيمِ الْحُقُوقِ, the first one. How do you do this? How do you favor the creation over yourself without disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, without wasting your time, without interrupting your journey? How do you do this? Three things. تعظيم الحقوق, esteeming rights. Esteeming the rights of others. To recognize the weight of this in our deen. To discharge your obligations towards others, to honor the rights of others, esteeming rights, تعظيم الحقوق. And the rights here are, firstly, the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the rights of the ummah collectively, the rights of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam prior to this, after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the rights of the ummah collectively, and the rights of humanity, the rights of everyone over you, the rights of the environment has rights. ظهر الفساد في البر والبحر بما كسبت أيدي الناس. Corruption has appeared in land and sea because of what the people have earned. So everything has rights over you. So you have to honor those rights. I would go as far as saying, as an ambassador on behalf of this ummah, you have so many obligations, you have an enormous burden. You want, as a man of or a woman of, integrity, honor, piety, to be acting all the time out of duty and obligation, not desire and inclination, to be mindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala all the time and act out of duty and obligation. Don't pick your nose in public. You're a Muslim. That, it goes as far as this. To pick your nose in public, that is to many people disgusting. So they will say, so you look at this Muslim guy, and look at their lack of manners, lack of etiquette. No, you want to be always acting with this sense of duty and obligation, and to basically represent your ummah, to represent your deen in the best way possible, as sort of an acting ambassador on behalf of your ummah, on behalf of your deen, on behalf of your messenger. Show everyone, the products of this deen. You are one of them. So ta'zeem al-huquq, esteeming rights, the rights of Allah, the rights of the messengers, the rights of humanity, the rights of the environment, the rights of the ummah, the rights of your family, the rights of your spouse, the rights of your neighbor, the rights of your business partner, all the rights of all the people. To value them, to esteem them, to honor them is the first thing. Second, and certainly you could do this by learning. Learn the ahadith about the rights of others on you, the ayat and the ahadith about the rights of others on you. And the more you learn, the more, inshallah, you will honor those rights. Then the Sheikh said, maqtu shuh, abhorring miserliness. Abhorring miserliness. Maqt ash-shuh, abhorring miserliness. And that is important. It is important that, you understand that all of this comes from shuh. All of this selfishness comes from possessiveness, comes from greed, comes from avarice, And that is, some people are sahih, shuh and jood is not limited to money, by the way. Shuh and jood is not limited to money. Jood, which is generosity, generosity with your money is one of the forms of generosity. But there is generosity with your life. Martyrs, they sacrifice their life for their community. There is generosity with your honor, with your prestige. There is generosity with your positions of leadership, riyasa. There is generosity with your knowledge. There is generosity with your time. There are many types of generosity that are even more valuable than generosity with your money. And for certain people, like if you're Bill Gates or someone, generosity with your money is pretty easy, because, and that does not mean that it is not praiseworthy. It is praiseworthy to be generous with your money, because you could still be Bill Gates and you stingy, but he's not. One of the great sort of most effective philanthropists in the history of humanity is Bill Gates. Bill and Melinda Gates both are. So we're not trying to pick on anyone here, but I'm saying that it is much easier to be generous with your money than to be generous with your time. Like spending time with your family, for instance, or like spending time on behalf to serve someone who needs help, or do this or that. So generosity is not limited to money. Shuh is not limited to money either. So you want to be generous, and you want to hate shuh or stinginess, miserliness. You could be miserly with your life, your honor, your time, your knowledge, or you could be generous. So abhorring miserliness. And then he said, وَالرَّغْبَةُ فِي مَكَارِمِ الْأَخْلَاقِ, desire in magnanimity. وَالرَّغْبَةُ فِي مَكَارِمِ الْأَخْلَاقِ, desire in magnanimity. You see, there is a hadith that is reported by Ibn Abbas and Jabir and many other Sahaba from the Prophet ﷺ, and reported by Tabarani and others, a beautiful hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ جَمِيلٌ يُحِبُّ الْجَمَالِ. In some reports, جَوَادٌ يُحِبُّ الْجُودِ. Allah جَمِيلٌ يُحِبُّ الْجَمَالِ, جَوَادٌ يُحِبُّ الْجُودِ. In some reports, كَرِيمٌ يُحِبُّ الْكَرَمِ. In some reports, نَظِيفٌ يُحِبُّ النَّظَافَةِ. So Allah is beautiful and He loves beauty. He is generous and loves generosity. It even says in some reports, clean and loves cleanliness. And then the Prophet said, وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ مَعَالِيَ الْأُمُورِ وَيَكْرَهُ سَفَاسِفَهَا أَوْ سَفْسَافَهَا. إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ مَعَالِيَ الْأُمُورِ, that Allah likes magnanimity in character. Allah likes nobility. Allah likes chivalry. You could say that chivalry is also another synonym for this. So Allah likes magnanimity, likes nobility, likes chivalry in character, and He dislikes وَيَكْرَهُ سَفَاسِفَهَا or سَفْسَافَهَا, and He dislikes triviality, superfluous conduct, trivial conduct, foolishness. Was there any better word? Safsafa? Yeah, foolishness, triviality, superfluous conduct. So, desire in magnanimity. All of this requires, all of this requires effort. All of this requires thoughtfulness. All of this requires deliberation. All of this requires freedom and autonomy from your inclinations, from your instincts. It requires to be conscious of your conduct all the time, to be watchful of your conduct all the time, because it is not easy. Most of us act out of inclination all the time. What is more comfortable, what is more desirable, what is easier. That is how we act most of the time. But Allah wants you to act out of duty and obligation. Allah wants you to act out of, consciousness of Him, being conscious of Him all the time. Then the Shaykh said, وَالدَّرَجَةُ الثَّانِيَةِ إِثَارُ رِضَى اللَّهِ عَلَى رِضَى غَيْرِهِ وَإِنْ عَظُمَتْ فِيهِ الْمِحَنْ وَثَقُلَتْ فِيهِ الْمُؤَنْ وَضَعُفَ عَنْهُ الطَّوْلُ وَالْبَدَنْ. So the second level is favoring the pleasure of Allah over the pleasures of others, even if this resulted in great hardship, cost a great price, and overwhelmed one's strength and body. Even if this resulted in great hardship, عظمت فيه المحن وثقلت فيه المؤن, cost a great price, وضعف عنه الطول والبدن, and overwhelmed one's strength and body. So here, Allah is telling you that in the first type of istar, you will favoring others over yourselves. Now the second type, you're favoring Allah over others. Favoring Allah over others, regardless of the cost, regardless of the burden, regardless of the hardship. اقرأ Surah Al-Asr, recite Surah Al-Asr. You're bound to be tested. Surah Al-Asr says, once you have amanu, وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, they believed and did righteousness, worked righteousness, وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ, and enjoined each other to the truth. What is coming after this? وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ, enjoined each other to patience. Because undoubtedly, you will get to that point. If you continue to have faith and to work righteousness and to enjoin others to righteousness, undoubtedly, those who hate righteousness will test you, will oppose you, will fight you, and you will need that patience. Regardless of the cost, regardless of the burden, you will continue to favor the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala over others. إِثَارْ رِضَى اللَّهِ عَلَى رِضَى غَيْرِهِ. Imam al-Shafi'i said to Rabi' ibn Sulaiman, may Allah bestow mercy on both of them. He said, يا ربيع رضا الناس غاية لا تدرك فأقبل على ما يصلحك. يا ربيع رضا الناس غاية لا تدرك فأقبل على ما يصلحك. O Rabi', the pleasure of people is unattainable, is an end that is a goal that is unattainable. فأقبل على ما يصلحك, mind your own business, what is good for you, your own well-being. That does not mean that we are cruel to people or we don't want to please them. We want to please them, but we want to please them for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We want to please them for the pleasure of Allah. It's part of, pleasing Allah. The Prophet ﷺ said, لا يشكر الله من لا يشكر الناس. For instance, he is not grateful to Allah, he who is not grateful to the people. He is not grateful to Allah, he who is not grateful to the people. لا يشكر الله من لا يشكر الناس. So we do want to please the people. We do want to do good by the people, to please them, to make them happy, absolutely, but not at the expense of displeasing Allah. The Prophet ﷺ said, من أرضى الناس بسخط الله سخط الله عليه وأسخط الناس عليه ومن أرضى الله بسخط من الناس رضي الله عنه وأرضى الناس عنه. This hadith was reported by Abu Hurairah and Ibn Hibban in different wordings, by Tirmidhi and Ibn Hibban in different wordings, from Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu and others. So whoever pleases the people at the expense of displeasing Allah, Allah will be displeased with him and will make the people displeased with him. And whoever pleases Allah at the expense of displeasing the people, Allah will become pleased with him and will make the people pleased with him as well. So work for the one in whose hands are the hearts of the people. If you want to win the hearts and minds of the people, work for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala according to the instructions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He will help you earn their hearts and minds. He will grant them for you, not just it's not like Allah is helping you, but Allah will grant you your wish, your desire. So there is like, I don't know if we have time for this, but it's about, pleasing the people is unattainable. There's poetry, it's by a contemporary poet. He said, ضحكت فقالوا ألا تحتشم بكيت فقالوا ألا تبتسم بسمت فقالوا يرائي بها عبست فقالوا بدا ما كتم سكت فقالوا كليل اللسان نطقت فقالوا كثير الكلم حلمت فقالوا صنيع الجبان ولو كان مقتدرا لانتقم بسلت فقالوا لطيش به وما كان مجترئا لو حكم. And then he said, إذا قلت يقولون شذ إذا قلت لا وإمعة إذا وافقتهم فأدركت أني مهما أرد رضا الناس فلا بد من أن أذم. So he says that I laughed, ضحكت فقالوا ألا تحتشم. I laughed, then they said, why don't you show decency? بسمت فقالوا ألا بكيت فقالوا ألا تبتسم. When I cried, they said, why don't you smile? And when I smiled, they said, he's showing off. And when I frowned, they said, now his true nature comes out. بدا ما كتم. Now his true nature comes out. سكت فقالوا كليل اللسان. I stayed silent. They said, he's inarticulate. I spoke. نطقت فقالوا كثير الكلم. I spoke and they said, he's a chatterbox. He's too talkative. And then حلمت فقالوا صنيع الجبان. I showed forbearance. They said he's coward. This is the behavior of cowards. ولو كان مقتدرا لانتقم. If he was capable, he would have avenged himself. بسلت. I showed courage, bravery. بسلت فقالوا لطيش به. They said, so when he said that he is imprudent. This courage is imprudence. فقالوا لطيش به وما كان مجترئا لو حكم, and he would have not been this daring if he was wiser. If he was wiser, he would have not been this daring. And then he said, يقولون شذ إذا قلت لا. They say he's oppositional. Every time I say la, no, they say he's oppositional. And if I say na'am, they would say he's like a toady imitator. He's imma, he's an imitator. فأدركت أني مهما أرد رضا الناس. Then I realized that as long as I seek the pleasure of the people, فلا بد من أن أذم. There is no way that except that I'll always be blameworthy. And I will always be in distress as well. As long as this is what you're seeking, you'll be in distress. Rida Allah is easy and guaranteed. He told you do this and this and that, and I guarantee you my pleasure. Rida al-nas, the pleasure of the people, is difficult. And it is not worthwhile. So work for the people and show altruism and, work for their happiness, work for their well-being, work for their welfare for the pleasure of your Lord. For the pleasure of your Lord. So how can you do this? How can you tu'thir Allah over the people? It is not easy. It is not easy because the people are always in your face and you will always want their pleasure. You always want recognition by them. You always want praise. You always want acceptance. That is here. Sense of belonging and love. That is a basic human need. And Allah does not want you to give up your basic human needs, but not at the expense of displeasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You don't secure this need at the expense of displeasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Abu Firas, it has been attributed to Rabi'ah, but it may have been Abu Firas's, and he may have not been addressing Allah. If it is Rabi'ah, and if she was addressing Allah, then certainly the verses are beautiful, as Ibn al-Qayyim said. So whoever said this, Rabi'ah or Abu Firas, فليتك تحلو والحياة مريرة وليتك ترضى والأنام إضاب وليت الذي بيني وبينك عامر وبيني وبين العالمين خراب إذا صح منك الود فالكل هين وكل ما فوق التراب تراب. So فليتك تحلو, I wish you were sweet, والحياة مريرة, even if the whole world was sour. وَلَيْتَكَ تَرْضَى وَالْأَنَامُ غِضَابُ, and I wish you are pleased, وَالْأَنَامُ غِضَابُ, even though all the people are angry or are displeased with me. وَلَيْتَ الَّذِي بَيْنِي وَبَيْنَكَ عَامِرٌ, and I wish the bond between me and you is strong. وَبَيْنِي وَبَيْنَ الْعَالَمِينَ خَرَابُ, and all that which is between me, or all the bonds between me and the rest of the world, are cut off or in ruins. إِذَا صَحَّ مِنْكَ الْوُدُّ فَالْكُلُّ هَيِّنٌ, if you truly love me, فَالْكُلُّ هَيِّنٌ, then everything else is insignificant. Everything else that does not matter. إِذَا صَحَّ مِنْكَ الْوُدُّ فَالْكُلُّ هَيِّنٌ, if you truly love me, then everything else does not matter. وَكُلُّ مَا فَوْقَ التُّرَابِ تُرَابُ, and everything above the dust will turn into dust. Everything above the dust of the earth will turn into dust. Then he said that this is not attainable. This to favor Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala over all others is not attainable except with three qualities. He said the soundness of one's homecoming. بطيب العود, the soundness of one's homecoming. Your homecoming is basically your return to paradise. It is, you want to have momentum here, basically, so that you're not pulled back, you're not distracted. You want to keep your momentum on this path so that your journey is not interrupted. You do want to basically, as Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah said, to have this ayah, to let this ayah be heard by your heart all the time. يا أيتها النفس المطمئنة ارجعي إلى ربك راضية مرضية فادخلي في عبادي وادخلي جناتي. يا أيتها النفس المطمئنة, O you tranquil soul, ارجعي إلى ربك, return to your Lord. That is طيب العود. That is the soundness of one's homecoming. You know, if you are hearing this ayah in your ears all the time, ارجعي إلى ربك, يا أيتها النفس المطمئنة ارجعي إلى ربك, O you tranquil soul, return to your soul. You will start the journey. You will start the journey back home to your hometown in paradise. That is where you belong. That's where you belong. That's where you came from. But طيب العود is the soundness of one's homecoming. You know, you could always say that I want to go back, I want to return, but you're not showing any signs. You're not packing. You're not you're traveling tomorrow, but I don't see any signs that you actually are traveling and you actually want to travel. So بطيب العود وحسن الإسلام وقوة الصبر, the oneness of one's Islam and the strength of one's resolve. قوة الصبر, the strength of one's resolve. That is how you continue on this path and not be distracted. And then he said, الدرجة الثالثة إيثار الله فإن الخوض في الإيثار دعوة في الملك ثم ترك شهود رؤيتك إيثار الله ثم غيبتك عن الترك. الدرجة الثالثة, the third level, is one's denial of their altruism out of recognition that it is only Allah who favors whomever He pleases. إيثار الله. إيثار الله, it means here, I know it's a long sentence to translate 3 words, but that is what it means. It is basically to deny your own ithar, to deny that to deny your own altruism, out of recognition that it is actually Allah who favors. So whenever you favored someone, it is Allah who favored him with this, because who are you to favor someone else? And then he explains here, فإن الخوض في الإيثار دعوة في الملك. This is so because one's claim of altruism is a false claim of ownership. If you think that you're altruist, if you think that you're favoring others, you first had the delusion that you owned something and you gave it up. But you actually did not own anything. So you did not give up anything. There was no altruism on your part whatsoever. It is Allah who divides those shares. هذه أقسام. والقاسم هو الله عز وجل. These are shares that Allah divides. And Allah basically provided for this person through you. You were just like a relay point. It went through you. But Allah provided for this person through you. So when you showed altruism, it was actually Allah providing for this person through you. He decreed that He would provide for him through you. He would have been able to not make it go through you. He would have been able to provide for him without you doing anything, without the money going through you or you showing any ithar. And then he said, ثم ترك شهود رؤيتك إيثار الله. Then one must refrain from beholding their denial of their altruism. The Sheikh wants you here to strip off any remains of your ego. This is the third level. This is the level of self-dissolution, where your self moves away from the center of your thought. This is the level of self-annihilation, or the Sunni form of self-annihilation. So the Sheikh tells you here, then, after you have denied your ithar, you said, I have no power, I have no influence, I have no hawl, I have no quwwah. It is Allah who provided for him through me. You want now to not behold your denial of ithar, because your denial of ithar is your action. And if you're still mindful conscious of your action, you're conscious of yourself. Yourself is still at the center of your universe. The Shaykh wants you to remove yourself from the center of your universe so that Allah, God, becomes at the center of your universe. And then He will tell you that after you have refrained from beholding your denial of your isar, ثُمَّ غَيْبَتُكَ عَنِ التَّرْكِ. Then you must be unconscious of your refraining from beholding your denial of isar. So غَيْبَتُكَ, it is complete, your complete sort of death of your consciousness. So that you are not conscious, not of your actions and not of your abstentions, because you are not conscious of your ego altogether. You're not conscious of your ego altogether. We've talked about al-fana so many times, and we've explained what it means. قل قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.